Hi, and welcome to New God Sunday School. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion from Image Comics. All three of those books are available for pre-order by following the pre-order links in the show notes below. Complete in this issue, The Dictator's Dungeon, Mr. Miracle, number 13, super escape artist. Stop him, he'll never free himself in time. He's committing suicide. With each issue, Mr. Miracle is becoming, less and less one of the most innovative comics of the 70s and just becoming, run-of-the-mill superhero pap. Very stiff, very forgettable, largely uneventful stories. This one, for instance, on the cover, we have a, sort of Perils of Pauline silent movie cliche of Mr. Miracle being tied up on a railroad track. Contrast that with the sort of super sci-fi death traps that we've seen in previous issues. Kirby's on autopilot here. New Gods got canceled. Forever People got canceled. He was given the impression that those books were losers, they were duds, even though he was giving it his all, and in my opinion, produced the greatest comics that have ever, come out of the medium. For one reason or another, the powers that be deemed them financial failures, and Jack's sort of stated goal with his work was to have financial success, to have hit books that made, a lot of money for his employers. The word came down that, Jack, your comics are great. The college kids love it, but they're too complicated, too convoluted for the kids to enjoy, the kids who make up the bulk of our audience. So you got to simplify them. You got to dumb them down. And dumb them down he did. These later issues of Mr. Miracle are a far cry from the greatness that we see in sort of the first 9 issues. So yeah, Perils of Pauline, silent movie cliche, tied to a railroad track. Will he make it? Will he make it? Less than seconds to go, and he's dead, he's dead. What's wrong, everybody? You look worried. By golly, look, he's alive. So Scott's okay. We don't see any of the female Furies around, just Big Barda. Mother Box was written out. Now the female Furies have been written out. We're going to get Ted Brown's origin story, and then he's going to be written out. He's not going to be in the next issue. And so they get sucked up into the owl ship, basically, this sort of hovering airship that sort of pulls them in. Barda punches her way through the wall, kind of like Orion. I like that Barda's the heavyweight, that Mr. Miracle doesn't seem to, that sort of, super strength and superpowers doesn't seem to be common to the New Gods, at least maybe the New Gods of Apocalypse. Maybe all the New Gods on New Genesis have super strength, but on Apocalypse, where Darkseid's doing all his mind games and stuff, only the members of the special powers training get to develop, super strength. She's like the warrior, and Mr. Miracle is the wizard in the party. He has a lot of tricks and gimmicks, but not much strength by comparison. So Barda's swinging these guys around. There's a shootout. They're flying. Where are we going? They go into these mountains. They get dropped out of a trap door. Here's the bad guy. He's called King Komodo. And again, just like Mistovac, it's not a bad villain design. Mistovac in the previous issue, it's just like kind of, boring villain of the week, And again, I don't know, if he had some tie to Apocalypse or something, maybe it would have, made it a little more interesting. Maybe it would have, made it feel like this was all part of like a larger story, but nothing, no mention of any of that stuff. And then it's a little bit like, we got a little bit of Watchmen again going on here. They're in this sort of, frozen area. And I like how Mr. Miracle gives Barda his cape to keep warm. That's a nice touch. Just some nice human emotion injected into a story that does seem very like plot A to B to C. Not a ton of characterization in it. And she rips the door off again. She's the powerhouse. She's attacking and stuff. And then they find They see there's some swastikas and there's a statue of Hitler. All this feels very incongruous to Mr. Miracle. Ted Brown is being held captive. Ted Brown is the, he's the focus of this issue. He's a snooze. He's a fucking snooze. And kind of, I guess, emblematic of this sort of era of Mr. Miracle, where it's just been sort of stripped of the larger mythology of the new gods. When Ted Brown shows up, your comic has jumped the shark. And then even there's this sci-fi ray gun that shows up. And when I was first reading this comic, I was getting these comics out of sequence, so I didn't know that there was that big change. I didn't know that, oh yeah, they canceled the other New Gods stories, and so it changes. So I was just getting, whatever Mr. Miracle issue I could find. So I was reading them out of sequence, and I remember reading this and wondering, how come they're not tying this in with the Apocalypse stuff? Like, why not say, oh, here's this weapon that I got from Darkseid or from Intergang or whatever that that can take care of Big Bart. I wondered why Jack wouldn't take advantage of that opportunity to sort of tie it in with his larger mythology. And then, as I sort of filled in the gaps and learned more about the backstory, it was like, oh no, this is what Mr. Miracle becomes. And I also kind of wondered, I thought, what, Mr. Miracle, it's like sometimes an issue of Mr. Miracle is like the greatest thing I've ever read. And then sometimes it's pretty lacking. Like it seems real uneven. I wonder why that is. Again, not knowing the larger context. And I remember around this time, I was also collecting The Demon. And I was like, what? I think The Demon is my favorite Kirby comic, because it's just like I was getting issues at random, and it was like, man, every issue of this is just great. And, as great as some of the Mr. Miracle issues are, it's too spotty. It's too all over the map, where, The Demon has like a pretty consistent high level of just quality. And again, these things are, it's hard to quite pin down, because it's again, these aren't bad drawings. These are exciting sequences. It's just, there's a little something special missing. There's a little magic missing from this. Those things that make the difference between like an okay comic and a great comic are kind of hard to put your finger on, but it is, the love isn't there. King Komodo is gloating at them. Mr. Miracle smashes it through a view screen. Mr. Miracle smashes it. Some like lava starts pouring in. Mr. Miracle tells everybody to get under his cape. It turns out they're okay. They make their way out, and Mr. Miracle realizes that this tunnel he's in is actually a giant cannon, and now this bullet's charging at him. Cool visual, and blasts out of there. But fortunately, he burned a hole with his boots to get out of there in time. We got some Pit and the Pendulum action. And then he sends a transmission, from his hood. Again, this time not even referencing Mother Box or anything like that, just hidden circuitry to send out a psychic control message to King Komodo. Just like Mistivac hypnotized Mr. Miracle in the previous issue, now Mr. Miracle's hypnotizing King Komodo. They fly out of there with King Komodo. They unmask him. And now we get Ted Brown's backstory. Ted Brown was a prisoner of war in the Korean War, and while there he met a guy who was sort of hiding out there, and he recognized him as a Nazi war criminal, von Killowitz. And so now von Killowitz made sure that Ted Brown could never leave, since he knows his secret. It was a horrible experience. I was hunted like an animal by men with dogs. I lost myself in wild, remote country and was listed as dead by the army. Forget it, Ted. Put your life on automatic drive, like I have this ship. Just coast happily along from now on. And they, fly off into the sunset. Look ahead, Ted. Let's all look ahead. Next, The Quick and the Dead. And so we got his backstory. And that's issue 13 of Mr. Miracle. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and from Image Comics, Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. All three of those books are available for pre-order by following the pre-order links in the show notes below. I'll see you next time for New Gods Sunday School.